I am the CEO of Packback. I joined Packback back in 2017 after 4 years in the classroom. I was a high school chemistry and physics teacher, and I was personally victimized by grading writing, which is part of the reason why I do what I do today. So Packback's been around since the early 2010s, and we've always been about bringing feedback forward in the writing and learning process, supporting students, motivating students, and then helping educators. But we've started incorporating more of our magical pedagogy into the originality space. So today I'm going to put a spin on Packback as it exists and talk about how we actually can prevent academic dishonesty through proactive action in the teaching and learning process. And I was planning on doing a live demo, but I've had to pivot into some animated GIFs, so bear with me. So a brief overview of the Packback platform. We have 3 core products. We have a discussion product, Packback Questions, which is inquiry-based. We launched this product in the higher ed space in the early 2010s because we knew educators missed Socratic-style discussion when their courses grew past 30 students or when their courses had to go online. So we then launched Packback Writing and Packback Writing Lab. Across all these 3 products, what we can do is support writing for every assignment, really. We have instant feedback for students as they are writing in real time. We have grading support for educators to reduce grading writing time by 30 to 50%. And then we also have academic integrity workflows, and I'm going to talk about that pretty significantly today. But one thing I want to underpin, we built our first rules-based algorithm in the mid-2010s. And the purpose of the algorithm was to coach students on how to ask open-ended questions. It was not to write an open-ended question for them. So everything we do within Packback is instructional in intention. It is not generative. So what we had to do circa late 2022 is actually define our product as utilizing instructional AI. That is AI that does not do the writing for the student, but rather teaches them how to write, how to critically think, how to do research. It's AI that's based in research and pedagogy. It's AI that should empower an educator to get closer to their student, not drive a wedge between them. And so what we do is very intentionally incorporate the power and the potential of artificial intelligence without risking or jeopardizing the critical thinking process for a student or the relationship between a teacher and a student. So I want to talk a little bit about the pedagogy that drives Packback and the pedagogy that drives our decision-making. We have a lot of different research foundations to how we design our product, but the main one I want to talk about is self-determination theory. Those are the conditions necessary for someone to feel intrinsically motivated. If you're an educator, use this. If you are a manager that manages people, use this. If you run a company, use this. If you're a human being with children and you want them to do the dishes, use this. This is, there are 3 criteria that must be met for someone to want to do something. First is autonomy. There has to be choice, right? I think we can all feel this as individuals with careers, that when we have autonomy, we are more likely to want to do something. When we feel micromanaged, we feel less likely to want to do something. There needs to be a connection to purpose, a relatedness, and that's where an educator-student relationship is the most important. There's no technology that's going to perfectly help a student understand why they need to learn what they're learning. There's very little technology that's going to perfectly build community and collaboration. Educator needs to be the accelerator with purpose and connection. And the last is going to be competency. Us as human beings, in order to keep doing something, we can't consistently fail over and over and over again. We will give up at some point. We will stop getting back on the horse. So what we want to do is, in every area of our platform, ask ourselves, are students being motivated? And when our students are motivated, what sorts of academic outcomes are unlocked? What kind of excitement from our educators are unlocked? And the most recent question that we asked ourselves in 2022 was, we had always had AI detection. Well, we brought in AI detection in 2022. We had always had plagiarism detection in our platform because it's writing. You have to have it. It's a boundary. But we started asking ourselves, what could we do to actually motivate students to not cheat? How could we motivate them to want to share their original voice so that detection can be the final action or activity in a long series of proactive steps in the student writing process? And how can we actually just prevent plagiarism from happening in the first place? And that's the space we've been really excited to expand on and work in the last few years, and really just build upon the magic we've already created. So what we've done at Packback is really just taken a different approach to plagiarism detection. So a lot of plagiarism detection tools will have the students submit their work, educator reads a report, and then we have a conversation with the student if that educator has the time. Otherwise might report the student, et cetera. And we know how harmful it could be to report a student when they didn't actually mean to plagiarize, they did it on accident, or they didn't realize they'd plagiarized, or they were falsely flagged of AI-generated text. So our approach is a little bit different. Again, we've always been the company that's very rooted in proactive writing feedback in real time. So we want to pull all of that feedback forward, not just writing feedback, but also feedback on the originality of their work. Hey, it looks like you might submit something that seems like it could have been generated by AI. Do you want to talk about this a bit? How can we proactively, transparently tell a student that what they're about to submit would not pass the sniff test? There's a lot of really wonderful research that the only way to improve academic outcomes and use detection is to do so transparently, and is to pull students into the process. There's really wonderful research on this. Now, I'm going to show you some brief overview images of the platform so you can get an idea of what it looks like to write in Packback. So our very first product, Packback Questions, I have this quote here from an English instructor, feels like having 25 TAs sit one-on-one with my students, right? And if you actually ask a teacher what superpower they would want if they could have any superpower, do you know what like 5 out of, 6 teachers will say? Clone. I wish I could clone myself. So I wish I could sit next to every single student, make sure they're paying attention, and give them feedback in real time. And that's what our AI aims to do, is be this one-on-one coach next to a student as they're writing. So here's an example of a student asking a question, and you'll notice we give feedback on the right-hand side. If they want to hide it so that they don't get distracted as they're writing, that's fine. The purpose of this feedback is to help them write an open-ended question that their peers are going to answer. Again, when we go back to self-determination theory, how do we get a student to want to engage in a rigorous classroom discussion? You have to give them autonomy. Let them ask the questions. They're going to apply what they're learning from, let's say, the last week of material. They're going to ask an open-ended question. That is the highest possible level of blooms, right? Really applying and creating through asking an open-ended question. And then we're also going to give them feedback on the quality of their research, grammar, flow, mechanics of what they're writing. Now, for an educator who might have, when I was teaching, I had 180 students. A lot of our users are in the higher ed space, but we do have a good amount of users who are high school teachers. They might have students use Packback, let's say every week, as a formative writing assessment. They want to show that they're engaged in the discussion, even though they're not in the driver's seat as the educator. They're co-captain on the ship. So what we've done is we've built in numerous workflows so that educators can show how engaged they are in the discussion without necessarily having to respond to every single student question. So here is an example. As an educator, I can publicly praise a question, and then every other student is able to see that public praise. We call it kind of like being the writing sample on the fridge, is the way to think about it. But then other students can start modeling the behavior of this writing assignment because it's an open peer discussion group. So a lot of other tools we have, insights, dashboards, great, wonderful things in our questions platform for, again, inquiry-based discussion. The second platform we built, and this was actually just listening to our educators, they're like, my students' writing is getting so much better in Packback. Could they write their essays in Packback? And I said, absolutely not. You cannot just have your students write your essays in a discussion platform. So we built them an essay platform, and that's Packback Deep Dives. So here, students first do research. They input links to their research, and we give them feedback on the quality of their research. In some courses, it's okay if you cite BuzzFeed. Maybe it's an introduction, communications course or a journalism course. But in most academic settings, we want students to cite credible research. So we'll give them feedback on the research. And then as they write, they're going to go ahead and get feedback on things like grammar mechanics, flow, sentence structure, et cetera. And then more nuanced feedback as well. And it's directly reflective of the educator's rubric. So the step in using a deep dive, educator creates a rubric, student receives feedback, educator grades. It's an end-to-end platform. We don't have to go to 3 or 4 disparate solutions to get students feedback, get educators grading support, and do originality checks. Now, for an educator, we know teachers do not work 40 hours a week. I have never met a teacher who is not working on the weekend. I do not aim to replace an educator. I do not aim to have AI grade on behalf of a teacher. I think that's actually really inappropriate if students or educators are not in the loop of AI tools. So what we try to do, and the best way to think about this, let's have AI act as a red pen in the grading process, actually in the feedback process. This is how you can improve. Let's have AI assist in the red pen grading to allow educators to use their limited time on green pen grading. This is what I loved about your thesis statement. I really liked this research. You could have dug deeper here. That's the feedback we want educators giving on content and ideas, not on grammar and mechanics. Finally, just to show you a brief overview of Originality, we provide AI risk detection, and we also provide plagiarism detection. We do this for every single educator for every single assignment, but we also show this to students before submission. We also flag behaviors that we feel like might be indicative of academic dishonesty, such as copying and pasting a large piece of text. So we try to, again, stop the behavior from happening before students submit so they can learn from their mistakes without having to fail. If you're interested in learning more about Packback, because I have exactly 0 seconds left, here's a QR code to see our platform and perhaps grab a demo. We work with about 600 colleges and institutions and a large handful of K-12 districts, namely in high school and a little bit of middle school. So should be able to touch almost every single student learner. Thank you, everyone.